the average fitness business owner is a little bit too confident in how good their product is when it might be a 6 out of 10.
I do think the average CrossFit gym owner is more sophisticated when it comes to business than someone from the Perform Better crowd.
All thighs matter.
Welcome to Gym World Worldwide. My God, does it feel good to be back. This is your pal, your often frequent collaborator, guest host, Mark Fisher of markfisheryoutube.com. I got my brothers, John Franklin and Mateo Lopez of Kilo, not Gym Upsell Machine, because that's the URL that I own. And we are excited today because I talked to Mateo and John, I demanded that we brought on today's guest, James Pratt. So I have had the great fortune to get to work with James over the last few years as a client and member of the Unicorn Society, my coaching group. And this guy is a fucking unicorn. He belongs in the Unicorn Society. He is currently on pace to do nearly $2 million with an M in one facility. So I just knew that we got James on here. We would pelt him with questions and we would all benefit. We, the three of us, would benefit, as well as you, our beloved Gym World Worldwide listener.
So I've been to some Unicorn Society events, and James always shows up with like a posse. He's always got like 5 dudes with him, like he's a rapper. They're all
He's
like
rolling deep.
They all
Jacked.
got huge fucking arms, and they're all in shape, and they just roll in and look like super professional. Is that the secret to a $2 million gym? You just got to hire the boys, big arms,
Bodyguards. They're all bodyguards. Wait till you see Philly. We're coming.
What do
like
all these
6,
people
7
do?
Yes.
What is everyone doing over there?
Well, listen,
confirm or deny, they're largely former models. Can you confirm or deny largely former professional male models?
That is accurate. We do have a former male model on staff. That is helpful. But if you think the guys on staff have big arms, wait until you see Coach Sydney's quads. Because when she comes, she makes us all look bad. So you will meet her in Philadelphia.
Thighs save lives.
I am ready to eat that shame cake.
All thighs matter.
So tell us, what is it you do at Pratt Personal Training?
So we are 100% small group personal training. Of the members that we have, we are 85% adult. We have about 15% of those members being athletes. We have 9 sessions per day for adults with up to 4 trainers per hour with a 7-to-1 ratio. And then we have 1, sometimes 2 athlete sessions per day, same member to ratio.
You said up to 7 members per coach. That's correct. And then sometimes as many as 4 coaches at a time.
Yeah, we have 4 coaches every morning, all 6 hours.
So you have up to 28 people training at once in just the super melee small group. So small group session, but like a crazy scale. Like that's got to be mayhem, right? Like at any moment, you're not surprised if just a monkey runs through or like a clown car.
It's a large group of small group.
Okay, I see. So it's a big space. It's a big space.
Yeah, we have about 6,000 square feet on our half of the field that we rent. And it looks like if you were to walk in, it looks like it's a lifetime. You come in and you just see people doing all these different things, and we fully customize the program for every single member. And we have enough equipment to uphold that, and then we program in a way to appropriately distribute the exercise selections to make sure there's not an overage or backup at any one piece of equipment. So if you walk in, it looks like you're at your average gym, just watching a bunch of members work out, but everybody is guided and everybody is told what to do. And we hold the sheets for every single member, and we make all of the choices for their load selection. And then we have trainer assistants that go around and set everybody up. So none of the members even have to get their own stuff.
So in your group of 7, are they all on their own program, or is it templated and modified?
No template. Every single person is 100% customized from their program. And almost everybody's on a 4-day. Some people that are a little bit less competent, a little bit less independent will opt for a 2-day. In very rare scenarios, we'll give a single-day program to individuals, and they run through each day 6 times through.
You said you're half of the field. You're sharing this with somebody else?
Yeah, so we are inside of a gym called Test Sports Clubs, and they specialize in NFL Combine training. So I'm a small part owner of their company, which they own the land and the property. So That's been helpful. But essentially, they specialize in NFL Combine. We do one-on-one personal training and large group from a Test Sports Club perspective, and then Pratt personal training on the left side of the field. We exclusively do small group.
And Test has been around a long time, right? I think it says on the website like 20 years.
Yeah, 22-ish years now.
And when did you get on the scene? How did you get involved?
Yeah, that was my second internship at a college for exercise science. I played football in college, so it was very appealing to me to be a personal trainer and also be able to do football training, because I thought I was going to be the next Urban Meyer at first. That was my dream. So I was going to be a football coach for one-on-one athletes, but also I could utilize my exercise science degree and train people for fitness. And I'm like, this is perfect for me. So I ended up there in 2011, and they hired me before, maybe even not legally, but before my internship was even over and I was graduating college. They basically hired me and made me the manager of their Parisi Speed School satellite back in 2011.
And then you worked your way up from there.
Yes. So I worked for them until 2016. And then around 2016, I went on like a 3-year stretch from 2013 to 2016. I was averaging anywhere between 50 to 55 personal training sessions per week. And I enjoyed every minute of it. And I didn't mind working those many hours, but I just didn't know where my career was going to go from that point. So I was very invested in the small group personal training model, thanks in large part to the 2014 new Providence Summit. And I listened to Rick Mayo speak. I listened to Mark Fisher speak. And I think it was that year I left. And I was like, I definitely want to go all in on this semi-private / small group personal training type situation. So Test did not want to do it. It just seemed a little bit too risky to try to have all of their one-on-one members transition to small group. So at that point in time, I decided I was going to start my own business. I just didn't know where. So it was their idea to have me become a tenant in their facility, start my own company, and then just pay rent, and then work off of half of the field house that we have there and open up the business there.
I'm wondering, so obviously you've had some kind of remarkable success here, and now is as good a time to any. I think in the spirit of serving our listeners, the one thing I want to pull up on briefly is to acknowledge that sometimes people can do things because they're absolute freaks, because the two things you're doing that are almost impossible, I think, for most humans to replicate, and just speaks to your savage just proficiency and skills, is 1, 7 people at a time doing individualized programs. I don't know that I would sign off on almost anybody not James Pratt trying to do, because in practice, to try to create an individualized experience with 7 people at a time, most people struggle to do that with 4. Number 2, one might, I think at first blush, think like, oh, this is a great idea. If I can do, 6-on-1 in a 1,500 square foot, kind of the industry standard, let me do 32-on-4 in 6,000 square feet. Isn't that a no-brainer? And in practice, my experience is for most people that actually hurts their business. They actually get into all sorts of additional complexities because now their staffing is more complicated. Now they've got a much higher nut because they've got more floor print. It's not as simple as, oh, you want to quadruple your business? Quadruple your space and just like sell 4 times as many people per week. So that's not to say that no one else can do it, just that it speaks to sort of your skill set. Now, circling back to the follow-up question I had here is, interesting journey. You've been working for Test. They hire you at 22 to be a manager, which also I think speaks to some real chops, and mad props to them that they saw that in you. We now flash forward. You're thinking about doing small group. They pass on it. You decide you work out an awesome deal. They want to take care of you. You like the relationship. You launch it. You're now super killing it. So I'm curious, is Test still only doing one-on-one? Is anyone looking over what you're doing, thinking like, oh no, we messed up? Like what's the temperature there now?
Yeah. So now I am involved in ownership of Test. So I manage the Test staff, and we have an agreement up front that we are not going to cross over models. So when I do small group personal training, I'm the only business in the building, because there are technically like 6 of them when it comes down to like, historically speaking, chiropractors, physical therapy,
Sure.
massage therapy. So I'm the only entity in the building that's able to do small group personal training. And in turn, I do not, and also have no interest in one-on-one or large group in addition to our current model.
Got it. Okay. So basically they're just like, all right, James is our guy. We know he's a star and he's a killer. We're happy to just be attached to him, and we're happy to him be attached to us and support our team. So we're just going to let James have this entire kingdom within it, and then everybody's winning. James gets a ton of autonomy, ton of revenue income potential, and then we get James, and that is a win for us. Is that? I assume that's their perspective. Correctly so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think going back to 2016, of the days that I was doing the one-on-one training, I was doing the majority of one-on-one training for the building for years at that point in time. So I think it was security for them, and knowing that they can keep me there. And from a reputation standpoint, if I stayed in the building, it was probably helpful. And then for me, it was like I get to start my business with, at the time, I think I had like 20 to 25 athletes that I was allowed to transition right over into the business. I only had a few adults, but that was kind of the start of the business back in 2016, which was definitely a leg up on the competition when, on day one, you have 20 to 25 athletes.
Yeah, I just want to highlight and acknowledge, I think another potential takeaway for listeners, and again, this is an unusual situation. My assumption is if you're coming out of the system, I'd imagine you'd attribute some value to having been there. But that I think speaks highly of them that they didn't mess this up, right? Because to be fair, if you're in a smaller gym model, it's a little hard, right? You got like 100 clients, you have one of your coaches. If you have a coach and a half and your one coach decides, hey, I want to go do my own thing. Can I have 400 square feet to do this different thing? Admittedly, that's a little bit harder, but nonetheless, I think it's important we acknowledge that there could have been a scarcity-minded approach on behalf of Test. And to their credit, it seemed they saw, okay, James is a star. How do we make this a win-win? And seems like they've come upon something that allowed them to keep you in their orbit and give you the wings to fly. So good on them.
Yeah, we all have a good relationship now. And ultimately, the one thing I do say jokingly every once in a while is that originally I pitched to do this for Test. I wanted to do this whole thing as a Test employee.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There has to be some part of them being like, oh, darn it. But
so James, it sounded like you acted like an owner, and then you became an owner, and then you had a good idea, and they were just like, yeah, just go do it over here. And like their dream outcome was like you would pay some of their rent, and now you probably do more than they do in revenue. So kudos to you, tip of the hat. But I'm interested in this idea of a bunch of businesses operating harmoniously out of one space. You're in suburban New Jersey, so it's a pretty expensive market. Can you break down like how much your rent costs and how you kind of divvy that up amongst all the different businesses?
Yeah. So in the building, there's physical therapy, there's massage downstairs. There was a chiropractor in a small closet. I don't believe is there anymore. In the next few months, it is likely we will have a therapist. Exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And
like a brain one? Astrologist.
Yeah.
Like a feelings one?
A tarot card reader?
Yeah, exactly. Really, yeah.
What's that mental strength too?
Well, I am curious. So what's the idea? Is it for the mind gym stuff? Is it for the kids to get in the game, get their heads in the game? Or is it for you guys? Because it's stressful handling individual programming for hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yeah. I feel like it should be for me exclusively.
Yes.
But no, this will be a separate therapy business potentially. Right. So
when you got the pythons then, like this, you got to train your brain. There's nothing left to train when your arms are the size of my waist. So
man,
they're just on to the next frontier.
Yeah, but essentially with how when we first started, we just agreed on a revenue share. I was like, I'll give you a percentage of whatever our gross revenue is. And, that sounded great at the time, obviously.
Now
shit. It's like, it's like, I'm paying a lot, but you know what? It's kind of the risk you run at the time. And, little did I know, I was 26 or 27 at the time. And I was like, yeah, this seems like a great deal. And even now, I wouldn't necessarily say I regret it, but there were probably ways, if I was a little bit more savvy and if I could have predicted the future, that I would have went about the rent agreement differently.
Mm-hmm. Predicting the future is the key there. I think for all of us.
Oh, so we thought you had the big brain move, but they got the big brain move.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. 100%.
they were playing chess and we were playing checkers. There you go, Gym World. That's some free alpha right there. Just rev share agreement with everyone with a good idea in your gym.
There you go.
All right. So how do we get from I'm a personal trainer, I got these clients, I'm doing small group training because someone at Perform Better told me to, and to now we're doing almost 2 million. That seems like a pretty long journey. What was what were the lessons learned along the way?
Yeah. So at first, I pretty much just named the business after myself because I never planned on having any staff or any other trainers. And about 6 months
Tell
in,
me about it.
Yeah, smart move. But the about 6 months in, I realized that with the members I had, I basically just trained every single hour, which at the time was probably 8 hours per day. I was taking 6 members at a time, and I was just asking for referrals. It's like, hey, you guys like this? It's cool. It's much cheaper than the one-on-one we were doing. Here's a 2-week trial card. Give this to people. And then I would just relentlessly ask for referrals, and I was getting a ton of people. So I had to hire somebody. So I made my first hire, shared the floor with that trainer, and then we bumped the capacity to 12. And then we hired a few more people in the next year. And then I started training a little bit less. Those were my first, I think it was 2018 was the first time I wasn't on the floor for some training sessions, which was anxiety inducing, but rewarding also. And over time, I just kind of was on the floor a little bit less, started focusing on trying to sell a little bit more, getting more referrals. And we kind of organically grew until a little bit after COVID was when I first started actually caring, I guess, about marketing, which was relatively recent. So, I mean, we were doing last year, if we did 1.5, we didn't really have a full-time high quality marketing person, our buddy Dave Rasco, until October
of last year.
Of last year.
Oh, wow. So you got to 1.5 just all organic is what you're saying. Just, hey, Debbie, you got a friend who wants to be the 7th?
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, basically, all we did was like we just gave it away as much as humanly possible. We had 30-day trial specials. We had 6 weeks for $20, and we're just like bring in as many people as you can, and then we would just try to wow them to the point of getting them to sign up. And then we never had like we kind of sold the fact that we don't have contracts. We don't lock you in for a year. You could switch anytime. You can cancel anytime. You could freeze anytime. And we would kind of leverage that in the sales process. And we were essentially so anti-corporate, I guess, in our sales message that people fell in love with us to the point that they wanted to sign up, and most of them stayed if the product was good enough.
So is it just the training experience is just that superior? Is that the secret? Or is there anything you're doing in that 30-day trial, for example, where you're trying to get these like micro commitments along the way until you ask them to actually sign up?
Yeah. And in knowing what a lot of other gyms do, I guess if there's one thing that we do differently, it's that we ask for a ton of feedback and we are relatively reactive to the feedback. We have our programming set up in a way that we can kind of breed compliance and exercise enjoyability based on how we program. And the customization of our programming probably gears a little bit more like 60-40 in the direction of making sure you have a great experience based off of custom programming as opposed to like optimal scientific training. And I like our training staff is unbelievable. And the biggest battles that we have is they want to train somebody with the perfect exercise progression rep scheme. And I say, give them the exercises that will make them fall in love with exercise. And we could do all that stuff later.
Okay, so what I am interested to hear a little bit more about is my experience is when you see this kind of thing, and this is my pet operating theory for a lot of people that just kind of break the game. And specifically, I think the ultimate signal here is when the individual, by their own accounts, isn't really doing any conventional approaches to marketing other than maybe asking for referrals aggressively, but still most training gyms are trying to ask for referrals and give away the house to get people to come in there. And most of them are not able to get people in there. So I'm thinking about the early days of Stronger You with Mike Dola. I'm thinking about, frankly, the early days of Mark Fisher Fitness. And my working theory is there's something about a practitioner that has just a really remarkable amount of obvious credibility. As far as I know what I'm doing as a coach, I understand the science. I'm so confident what I'm telling you is the best that just breeds belief in everyone around them. Like, I guess you are the best. You really seem to know what you're doing. But coupled, importantly, and not to be underappreciated, with the emotional intelligence and the humility to meet the person where they're at, right? The old paradigm I always go back to is people, when they're looking at a coach or frankly, any helper relationship, you want to know, are you credible? Do I trust your domain expertise? And two, do you like me? Am I safe with you? Do we have a warm affiliation? And I don't know if you can answer anything specific. I mean, certainly I think a very operationalized version of that is having a program design system that is built on good science, but then is pretty willing to adapt to what are sometimes called quote unquote emotional exercises. Well, it's like, well, you want to do butt stuff. So like, right, we're going to do a lot of butt stuff. At the end of the workout, we're going to do like your butt's going to burn. I'm going to do some eccentric loaded hinge lunges. I'm going to get you real sore and you're going to be thrilled about that. So there is an exercise science piece of this, but I am wondering, and I think first I'd like you to speak, James, to how this shows up with James' 2016 trainer, because I also think, and I think this happens to some of the other people that have had your caliber of success, you also have clearly transferred that into how you show up as a leader, right? Because a reflection that I know is looking at your staff. It's very cliche, but it's the whole thing like game recognizes games. You know, nobody wants to be led by someone that's a less confident leader. Not only are you a leader for your clients, but you have incredibly talented, skilled staff that of their own right could be killers, but they look to you and they're like, I'll follow this guy. This guy, I mean, I'm good, but like this guy really knows what he's doing. And my suspicion is you're seeing that show up in both ways. So I want to flag just for now the leadership piece because I do want to come back to that. But I'm just curious if you would speak to any reflections you have about my hypothesis as far as how you think about the competence you displayed as a trainer in 2016 and your any skills, techniques that you use to get that sort of buy-in and connection with the clients to make them eat out of the palm of your hand and demand that all their friends come and train with you.
Yeah, as little confidence I have in myself as being a amazing sales and marketing person, I probably had a crazy amount of belief in myself as a trainer, even from early on. I remember going through college and taking courses and like listening to all the content and just realizing at the end of the day that I think I'm better than pretty much anybody in the training industry at training. Which clearly is not true. But I remember having a debate with my dad over what my future profession should be, and the classic conversation of like, you can't make a living doing this, and me saying like, listen, I'm really good. Like I'll make this work. Yeah. So like all I really needed was a couple of people to not believe in me to really make me want to succeed in this industry. But 100%. I think going back to even the test days, starting at doing one-on-one personal training. I was first a trainer at a Bally Total Fitness, throwback, when I was 19. So I was a trainer through my college years, and then worked at a pre-C speed school for 3 years before becoming the satellite manager at Test. So I had probably 4 years of training experience before I even received my first full-time gig. After college, after the exercise science degree. So I think there was probably a ton of confidence that I had in regards to the technicalities of training that helped a lot. Also playing football for years from a leadership standpoint, I had some amazing mentors. My head football coach, Dan Garrett at Kane University, was unbelievable. He was the first guy there, and he made our asses show up at 4:50 a.m. and he was already there jogging around the track. So that dude, just from a leadership standpoint, like I always wanted to embody the qualities that I saw in him.
Also, let's be clear. I'm an artiste, expert practitioner who doesn't believe in sales and marketing is totally a sales and marketing shtick. And so like you mentioned Mike from Stronger You. Like, I think now that he's sold the company, he's a little like more open about it. He's like, yeah, no, I knew what I was doing. It was just a shtick.
Yeah, totally. You're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just like riffing.
Oh my God. We don't do ads. We just give you a month for free. That's definitely not a form of marketing.
We just have a very specific, tightly scripted sales script that we drill on everyone on the team to say it the exact same way every time. We track all their numbers, but we don't really do sales and marketing.
It's just like a process we've repeated, thousands of times, and has gotten us to 1.5 million in revenue. But it's a stone. What do I know?
I've always said to the staff, if we sell the things that make us not salesy, then we're probably doing better at sales than most people.
I do think there's something about being like the hard charging like founder with a ton of conviction. Like, to Mark's credit, I do think that is true. I do think that's something that like is a lot more apparent and evident in the small group world, right? So Teo and I come from CrossFit, and we just got back from the CrossFit Games, where we attended a lot of business development sessions. And so one of the problems CrossFit was talking about from just like a brand standpoint is quality control. So they were doing a panel amongst the affiliates. And it's like, who here, like, raise your hand, would recommend someone's mom just go to a random CrossFit affiliate? So you go to the affiliate map, you just pick one, you don't know anything about it, and would like feel safe sending their mom there. And it was like, nobody raised their hand, like not a single person, right? And so it's this idea of like, okay, so, the quality piece matters. And it seems to be something that like that small group Perform Better world, like all you guys seem to have, came out of the womb, and from like 3 years old, you knew you wanted to be trainers, and all you thought about was training, and then like the guru aspect is just so much smaller and less prevalent. Like even at your things, Mark, it's like at night people aren't talking about like packaging and pricing; they're talking about like spine biomechanics and shit like that. So it's just like it's just a very interesting difference from the CrossFit realm to your side of the world.
I think you're right, John. And I think an observation, you're right, in the Perform Better world, it is my observation. And this, of course, is not like one-to-one, but it seems, and you all would know better than I do, my perspective on the outside the CrossFit world is you have a lot more second career people. And honestly, I'm a second career fitness person myself. But, when you go to Perform Better, you have a lot more people that are closer to like a James archetype that have degrees in the field. They did interns at either Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning or Cressy Sports Performance. Now, having said that, what doesn't always translate is to James's level of confidence, right? Because as I'm thinking about like listeners, how do you apply this? And it's a little of an art, right? Because again, I'm not exactly sure how one operationalizes this, because you have to be like a very likable, slight sociopath that's still sort of humble. A very likable, slight sociopath that's still sort of humble. Because if you're full sociopath and you're not likable and you don't think that you really think you're hot shit, that's a turnoff. But this reminds me of my young days. I remember going to my agent's office when I decided I was doing this full time, and I was like, my talent agent in New York, I was like, here's the deal. I do training. If you have any client that needs any help with their fitness, you have to send them to me. If not, you're making a mistake. Because there's no one that's going to do a better job than I am. There's no one that's going to care more than I am. There's no one that's going to understand them more than I am. You have to send them to me as a favor to them. I'm not asking this on my behalf. I'm asking on them behalf. No one is going to do a better job than me. Right. And again, a fine line, right? Because that can come across really off-putting, but in practice, like, I kind of thought it was true. I still think it was true. And James, you strike me as like same boat.
Yeah, 100%. And to your credit, Mark, at Perform Better, I remember that there was essentially a line in the sand of some of the people that talked about business, and then some of the people that talked about the FMS and PRI. And then Mark's talk was all about sales and gym environment and stuff like that. I'm like, this is kind of a cool talk. And then came the slide, and on the slide was FMS and PRI and all these training things. And I was like, no way did he just give a business talk and then drop PRI in there. It's like, this guy actually knows a lot about training, but is still leveraging his talk on business. Like, that was fascinating to me, because I was under the assumption that if you're good at business, you don't know shit about PRI.
Inverse correlation.
If you're good at that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is funny, because I do think like attending a lot of CrossFit meetups and then Mark's is I do think the average CrossFit gym owner is more sophisticated when it comes to business than someone from the Perform Better crowd. And this is just me pulling it out of my ass. If you just picked like two random people from each one, I would say like the Perform Better crowd probably would probably pass like a CSCS, probably get a higher score. And then if there was like a MBA test, I would guess the average CrossFit affiliate owner would do a little better there. And now knowing both, I could see why like the Perform Better crowd back in like 2011 to 2014 was so angry about CrossFit, right? Because you guys have just been like, you've just been grinding. You've been coaching these sessions like 12 hours a day, and you're probably charging like $79 a month if you weren't like working with somebody in business. And then like a guy like Mateo does a 30-day paleo challenge and picks up a barbell for 3 weeks and opens up a gym and is making like 50 grand a month from it. And so I can definitely see why there was a little bit of resentment there, but I'm happy that both camps are converging, and it seems like everybody generally just wants to make hotter moms, and I'm here for that.
Yeah, coming back from the games, definitely like I think the affiliates are now really starting to push the certifications, like the level 3 and level 4 certs didn't exist for a while. Like they just disappeared. Like they were there, then they disappeared, and now they're back. They've like reworked them. Something they're doing, I think, to fix exactly the problem John said about would you send your mom to this random one on the map? Like if you go to the CrossFit affiliate maps now and you search for a gym to drop in, it's going to highlight, oh, this one has 2 level 3 people and this one has a level 4. And like, I think they're trying to incentivize the affiliates to, one, make their coaches, incentivize them to continue their education, and then simultaneously start to combat that quality control issue that they have been running into of late.
The other thing we were talking about was like some of the like trigger movements have like started to disappear. Like, so I know every elite FTS writer, or no, T Nation writer probably wrote an article about how much they hate like the GHD med ball sit up. Right? Like probably 1,000 articles of just, this is why this movement is stupid. And during that, like those class years, CrossFit just leaned into it. It's like, we're going to program 8,000 of them.
We're kipping. We love kipping.
Kipping GHD. Yeah, no. So that movement's kind of disappeared. Sumo deadlift high pulls, you see those a little less frequently. Like it seems like the training is converging a little bit, and that's cool too.
And if I can make an interesting observation that we'll have to monitor, or sort of on, my side of the fitness coast, so to speak, that I am going to really do my best to hopefully play a useful role in, is I'm not suggesting by any means that that corner of the industry has bad training, right? I think there's like a lot of good stuff going on there. And I am wondering more and more with this current generation that were quote unquote born into the industry post the birth of the business thought leader industrial complex in 2017, 2018. I think we're seeing a lot of displaced nutrients, because in practice, what happened was a guy like Mark Fisher or even James Pratt in 2013, we didn't have a lot in our corner. There wasn't a lot of fitness business stuff. Like you had a few things, Tom Plummer would talk about it. You had some of the old guard kind of doing some stuff, but for the most part, for people like us, we're super hungry. It's like, well, I guess I'll just like read Super Training again, and what's happening now is I'm wondering, I don't know this will be true, and I'm going to do my best to make sure it doesn't happen. I think almost the inversion of what maybe you're seeing in CrossFit, where I'm getting a little concerned that some of those nutrients are getting displaced, because what happens now is 24-year-old coach in 2019 sees pretty quickly, man, I'm only making $35,000 a year. I'm 23. I should be making at least 100 grand and opening up my own gym. So like they kind of learned about squats, like kinda, and then they're all in on like, yeah, I want to learn how to have a funnel. I want to learn how to have an online high ticket, And again, I'm not against people making money, clearly, but it's interesting to hear that reflection, because I have a hypothesis that we might be going opposite day over in my corner, but it's also possible I'm entering the get off my lawn part of my career. So who knows?
I think it's that one.
Yeah, it could be. Totally could be. All right, sorry, kids. I want you to make money. I just want you to learn how to have good biomechanics. Anyway.
So yeah, how did you translate this once you started to once you had to hire staff, right? How did you translate this? I know everything about training and people love me. That's why they refer everyone. How did you impart that into your staff? Was there kind of a system that has developed since then for finding candidates and training them and hiring? Did you just anoint someone? What was the process?
Yeah, so they were at first all clients.
Oh.
So a couple of guys that were interested in getting into the industry. One guy walked in and he had just gotten his training certification, and he asked if he could intern And I said, I was in the middle of training, and I said, yeah, you can go hang out in the corner and, watch. And if you have
watch
questions,
this right now, start now.
Let's talk later. Yeah, you're hired. But basically what we did that was probably not the most time efficient, but very helpful in terms of development of a way too complex system, was that we met for pretty much 2 hours every single day to talk training. And thank God we were all obsessed with talking training.
So that's it. You just found other strength nerds, and then you just continued.
Yeah. So from 2016 to probably 2018, I would write the programs. We would meet about the programs. We would talk about the programs. We would talk about what new concepts we're going to apply, how this relates to the person specifically that we designed this program for. And everybody was really on the same page about pretty much everyone to deliver as close to a personal training type product to every single customer that we were training. But if I were to tell you some of the complexities that we got away with without systems and just based off of literally 10 to 12 hours of meeting conversations per week, it's insane. If we tried that now, we would be dead. But it was helpful at the time when we just had a couple to a few hundred clients and 3 or 4 full-time trainers with some time to invest to meeting and talk shop.
To be clear, this strategy only works in northern New Jersey. So northern New Jersey, there's just yoked dudes walking to your gym all the time. You don't even just like you write gym in crayon on the outside of the gym, and just every week it's just a new crop of them. So
yeah, we don't live anywhere but a professional sign.
So you just found other strength nerds, and you just talked to them about training, but you didn't tell them this is how you run a session. This is how you sign someone up. It was just know enough training, and you'll deliver good training.
Tell them about training,
and then people will stay.
Yeah. Basically, it was all training conversation, and like in terms of session standards, it was very much like on the fly. Like, hey, when someone comes in, like make sure you say hello. Like, and I guess part of it, based on what Mark was kind of saying before, was just like monkey see, monkey do, and just trying to always put on. Organically, always trying to put on my best face and train people as best as I possibly can, have really high quality customer service. I always leveraged in the direction of the customer. And I think the staff saw that there was like a very strong, genuine connection that I had with the members. And I was incredibly, not that I'm not anymore, but I was incredibly flattered that people would put their lives in my hands via fitness. And we took that very, very seriously. And I think that rubbed off on a lot of the staff. And luckily, we hired the right type of people too. And most of them are still with us now.
So if I can highlight, two things there. First of all, what I'm hearing there is something I very much resonate that I also think is, again, it's hard. I'm trying to think of like how we operationalize this, but at the very least, I can say there's a pattern in there that I see among people like you that have had outside success that I think I can relate to a little bit. There is almost this overweighted reciprocity that says when someone believes in you as a client and they trust you, that there's this depth of like, I am not going to let you down. This almost like I'm so moved that you believe in me that I'm going to run through walls and shoe nails to make sure you have a good experience. There's nothing I will not do for you to win. And then a founder people I think can ride the coattails of that. The second thing that maybe I'm interested you could speak to a little bit, which also I think happens a lot of this type of business, which is lightning in the bottle, you're shot out of a rocket. You get what Charlie Munger would call the Lollapalooza effects, right? Like there's a lot of luck, it's the right time, it's the right place. I think an underappreciated element of this kind of business is usually there's a special first follower, a first and or second follower that is the right person to be in that role where they will follow the leader founder, but they themselves are so dynamic that picks up a mass like a magnetic snowball rolling downhill that pulls together more cool people. And then, and this is where it sounds like you're at right now, James, and to your credit, you're clearly succeeding by the success you're continuing to have. You almost have to back out some of it because at a certain point you have to operationalize it and you have to start to say, okay, the things that got us here aren't going to get us there. It's not going to be realistic, when we're all in our 50s meeting for 12 hours every week talking about, the dynamics of the weight balance in a squat at the bottom of the lift. So I guess I'm wondering if you maybe have any sort of things that you are finding to be effective, because even somebody that is not freak mutant like you, I mean, that's a compliment, as they scale up their business, they kind of have to do the same thing. So I'm wondering if there's any things you found to be useful or lessons you've learned about how moving from superstar artists into a more professionalized SOP kind of business.
Yeah. Now, if I can go back to when we started, I would have done it way differently. And I'm sure you guys would agree that there's probably a much more systematic way of going about it with appropriate documentation and stuff along those lines, which is now where we're at. So now when it comes to training, we have our documents. This lays out every single scenario, everything you need to know. It's all right here. And this is how I can as closely as humanly possible replicate myself on the training floor. This is how, as closely as humanly possible, I could recreate how we go about our customer service and our thought process. And again, we have some unbelievable staff members that work really hard, and they've kind of embodied the same core values that we ask very well. So a lot of things have gone right in terms of like staff employment and stuff like that, but we've had to completely change how we go about it. Now I meet with the staff in total for probably 2 hours a week. Everybody gets a one-on-one, 15 to 20 minutes. I meet with the leadership staff from a training perspective, the leadership staff from a business perspective, the sales and marketing. And I don't do any of the sales and marketing anymore, but I have to have some sort of way to make sure that it's being done the same way when I was doing all the consultations and assessments and closing trials and then closing memberships. And same thing from the training, making sure that that's being somewhat systematic. And then from the marketing standpoint, hiring that out and just knowing that in our failed attempts prior, we really didn't know how to do a good job of marketing to generate leads, and then having somebody else do that and take care of it and almost have the who, not how type thought process behind marketing exclusively.
I don't know, man. If I had a $1.5 million gym without any SOPs, I probably would have stopped and then just been like, hey, do you want to have a $1.5 million gym without an SOP? SOPs suck, right? Every guru is telling you have to have an SOP. You have to run Facebook ads. Yeah. Yep. You can be like me. You have a $1.5 million gym without that stuff. Click here to find out how. Buy my book.
SOPs and playbooks are overrated. Don't listen to anything Mark Fisher says.
That's what I would have done.
I had the same observation because we had Mike Dalla from Stronger You on the show. And he said the exact same thing as you. It's like, we're like, how'd you hire someone? It's like, just knew this person really liked nutrition, so I hired them. And it's like, how far did you make it before there was like any type of standards? Like
all the way.
Point of sale.
I resonated a lot with that podcast, especially to the point that everyone still has my cell phone number. Like when he said that he has everyone still text him, like same here. And it used to be way more aggressive. Some of the newer members don't have my cell phone anymore. But I would literally text anybody at any time, didn't care who it was. So I appreciated hearing him say that.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's not best practice unless you are that charismatic super founder.
right.
Is just has so much conviction, because like when you hear like, oh yeah, we had no standards and we didn't manage people. We just like we did bicep curls and we talked about training for 12 hours and it worked. It's like, yeah, okay. Don't do that, guys. Don't do that unless you're James Pratt or Mike or Mark. Because us mere mortals, we need to have systems because it's just easier to not fail that way.
Yeah, that's the funny conversation we have now. It's like the conversations that we're having now. It's like, where would we be if we were doing the stuff that we've done over the last year and a half? If we had been doing this since 2016, where exactly would we be right now? And I mean, it's always something that you kind of kick yourself for, but maybe there were parts of it that made it special and allowed it to grow to the point of needing to standardize things. But also maybe if we standardized things back in 2016, we're talking about how we have 10 to 15 locations right now.
I don't know, man. I mean, I think I agree. It's, an interesting counterfactual to run, but I think your intuition is correct. My suspicion, I don't know this. And again, this is maybe me projecting and biasing my own probably incorrect assessment of what happened in MFF. because you leveraged several years of something that was super special and unique, it built a certain amount of momentum and margin that essentially, if you think about the business as like a plane, you just like got a huge launch pad and you just blasted off to Pluto, and you just had so much momentum and airtime that you had sufficient amount of time and money to actually build a professionalized plane around that machine. Whereas if the original plane had tons of SOPs and all these things and you weren't in the area without momentum, I'm wondering if it ever would have gotten as high, right? Because I think, frankly, it's a little bit more of the common path as people don't nearly have as much lift right off the platform. So then they're trying to build the SOPs, but there's maybe something, and again, it's not operationalizable, right? It's like there is a magic there. Now, the other thing that is also true that you're doing, my experience is that is definitionally not sustainable, right? That does not last for 10 years. It doesn't last for 20 years. At a certain point, you have to build a machine around it. But I think there's something to be said for having that initial spark and that momentum. And the thing I'm just continuing to reflect on, and I'm wondering if any of you have thoughts on, is this delicate dance of when you talk to a gym owner and you can tell the core issue is there's just something about you that is not indomitable, right? Like there's something about you that's just lacking in belief. And I can smell your lack of belief, and your clients can smell your lack of belief. And the people you're getting that are working with you are not as great because they also smell your lack of belief. And that, is interesting where, the role I think of the real sort of coaching wizardry, particularly that Keeler does, I think he has a real aptitude for, is how to build that in somebody, because there's something about that I think is both inevitable and foundational to achieve even lesser success, frankly, than because you ain't got to be James, right? We're not trying to say you have to be James. God bless us if you had to. Your biceps ain't ever going to be that big, but
only if you want to make millions of dollars.
Only if you want to make millions, then you can do it, But I think there's still something to consider that I ask as a reflection of our listeners is how truly, sincerely confident are you in the product you're serving, what you do? How confident are you that those clients are genuinely lucky that they get to work with someone that cares so much, that your team is lucky to be on a team that is this committed to making real impact and legitimately knows what they're doing? It's going to just dominate delivering a great product delivered in a beautiful way. That's the move. But again, that's a little bit harder than like, follow my 7-step plan to you. Those plans matter, but that's a different game.
This is like a rub I have with some business gurus, right? Because who you are, the baseline matters a lot. Like the founder is incredibly important, right? Like I think James is always going to be able to run a better gym, better facility than me just because his arms are so much bigger, right? But like in the CrossFit world right now, you have a lot of like gurus who are telling people like, just be better and chase excellence and don't worry about marketing because it's pouring water into a leaky bucket. You got to fix the experience and get retention to 100% month over month. And the reality is it's like a lot of people can't do that. A lot of people like it took 10 years of 12 hours a day. Like how long did it take you to refine your craft? Like probably a pretty long time, James. And so like, if you have somebody who was a member of a gym for 6 months and then started their own gym and your plan is like a business guru is like, yeah, let's fix your experience. But don't market before that because you're just wasting money. Like that person's going to go out of business.
That's wrong.
They need to feed their family, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and not only that, but I think, James and I think me and I think even Dola kind of like prove that rule. The reality is, you can be shot at a can and be so unbelievable your business grows like a weed for a while. But at a certain point, one, you can't outsell attrition, number one, and you're never going to get to the point where you're like, I don't need to grow anymore. This is fun. Actually, we can even get a little smaller. I don't care, right? That's number one. And then number two, that lightning in the bottle, again, it's defined by being unsustainable. It is defined by being the energy of a new thing. So you have to operationalize it at some point. So if a guy like James Pratt is getting serious about dialing SOPs and having a marketing director and really getting sophisticated with all the strategies he's employing, then if you do not have those superpowers outside the gate, I definitely don't think the lesson is like try to be like 2016 James. Try to be like 2023 James, right? Because frankly, that's going to be number one, a little bit more doable, and number two, that's where you're going to have to get to anyway if you want your business to have legs.
Yeah, I have a couple observations on. I guess for starters, in talking to other fitness business owners before, I've talked to them a little bit about their product, and I think maybe the average fitness business owner is a little bit too confident in how good their product is when it might be a 6 out of 10. And the conversations I've had around that is just like, hey, tell me, like, give me 3 clients you're thinking of right now. And then inevitably they tell me about their top 3 clients with amazing results that are perfect. I was like, now tell me your three worst experiences that a customer has had and they didn't sign up with you, or they canceled and they were pissed. And then, but it's funny, nobody thought about that when I first mentioned it. And I think there was a psychological thing I had going on when I was first starting, is that I was obsessed with who hated my product. And then I was obsessed with fixing those problems so nobody would ever have that problem again. And I remember somebody being completely unreasonably angry with me over the amount of exercises that they were given in a workout. They were remembered for 2 months. And then I had to ask them to leave because they were being so insanely disruptive. And I just remember beating myself up over that. I'm like, is it me? Am I lazy? Am I just not giving people enough exercises? And like, I have 100 members and this is one circumstance. But I think it's the gym owner that does place maybe not that much of an importance on their product, but something along those lines that makes it better than a 6 out of 10, I think is really critical to make sure that it is something that is worth referring people to. Now, on the tail end of that, I think one thing that I was accidentally doing that was business savvy, if you will, is that I was aggressively pursuing referrals at the start. And if you gave me a phone number, that person was getting called nonstop because I was dying to get them in there. So I wasn't a salesperson. I didn't think, but I do know for sure if you gave me a name and number, I'm getting that person in. And maybe not even because I was so money hungry, but I was dying to get another person in to tell me that my product was better than anybody else's.
Yeah, it's minutes, so we got him to admit it.
I was holding out.
It's an interesting.
He was calling his leads. Everyone, he was calling them.
It turns out following up, it works. What I hear there, James, interesting, like almost a reframe. So perhaps the issue, it's almost like the issue people run into is if they have, so we can discount if you don't have any confidence, that's a problem. But I think maybe more insidious issue is if you have the type of confidence that breeds complacency, whereas you seem to have the type of confidence that breeds a chip on your shoulder that says like, I have to rise to the level of this. And I'm so confident that if anybody doesn't think we're performing at the level I know we're capable of, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to figure out what it is. I'm going to fix them. I'm going to win them over.
Right on cue.
Prove them wrong.
Right next to the computer.
Oh.
Right next to the computer.
So you mean he has a disease? He's sick.
Yeah, but a useful.
Not a chip on his shoulder. He has a. It's a good disease. It's a money making disease. It's a disease that just makes money.
I've never made the bones. I have clearly weaponized and monetized my middle school wounds.
Along those lines, I have about 6 quotes of things that were said to me that give me that chip on my shoulder. That anytime I do talk to somebody about something like this, or the conversation gets like semi-motivational, I just tell people, listen, there's probably 5 to 7 things that somebody has said to you in your life that has been something that can give you a chip on your shoulder. It's just kind of up to you to utilize it. And I probably overutilize it, but I think it's been helpful in terms of maybe work ethic.
But what's going to be so great, James, is as your business continues to grow and you have more and more money with less and less time, you can then use some of that time to spend time in therapy and start to heal all those wounds that have led to such unbelievable success.
I was
and
just
then
about
that will be
to say,
helpful if and when you have, once you have families, then, they'll rub those sores on you.
You'll be able to pay for your children's therapy.
Yay! Yay!
I was just about to say that. I was watching Atlanta right now, and this episode is all about spite being the most powerful motivator. But the episode ends with Donald Glover's character saying, like, I have to go back to therapy. And it sounds like the therapist is arriving at
precisely the right time.
At the right time.
Perfect time.
Spite can be very powerful, but it can also leave you depressed and empty.
By the way, I'll say real talk. I actually love that idea. I love there's a therapist going in the facility because it does feel so aligned to what we do. Like, I think that's actually a really smart play to sub out a chiro for an actual therapist. Smart play.
Yeah, 100%.
I like it. I don't know about the business play.
You
but
heard
the
it here.
mission play,
Thumbnail. Mark Fisher Fitness hates chiros.
No.
All right. So Mark tells us that our podcast is demotivational because we only interview fitness trillionaires.
No, I said I get demotivated. Because I got a chip on my shoulder, but then I go work hard. Then I go work a 70-hour week. So maybe it's good, John.
So James, if you were, if you had somebody who's, maybe doing 20 grand in top line and making enough to get by, came to you and said, James, I need help. Like I'm thinking about shutting this thing down. I just can't keep going like this. Something's got to change. Like, how would you, like, what advice would you give a person like that? Assume their training's like a 5 or 6 out of 10, because most people suck in that situation. That's probably the harsh reality. Like, they're just average.
I would love to know where they spend the majority of their time, because I've had this conversation with about a dozen other gym owners and who have said something very similar to that. And on the weekends, they don't work. And on the mornings, they don't work. And they shut down shop at 5 p.m. when they could potentially get another class going at that time, but they just chose not to. So I would love to know, where are you spending your time first? And is this important enough for you to invest more time and work harder to try to make this happen, whatever this is? But if you want to get to 30,000 and 40,000, are you spending enough time to actually make this something that could grow to that? Whether it be the actual operations and the training, or focusing on sales and marketing, or whatever your superpower is, I think is irrelevant. But if you're just not going to spend the time to make it a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month business, then it's probably not going to happen.
You got to spend all that time training, talking about training. All the time needs to be spent talking about training with your friends and your potential hires and your clients.
If your future wife, teach a Turkish ghetto.
Like, gym, I don't know. I think gym owners as a species, as a class, work harder than most entrepreneurs. Like, very rarely do I find a gym owner that I talk to and just be like, oh, this guy's kind of a lazy piece of shit, right? Like, because so many people got into the industry because they are so passionate about it. They do tend to work a lot. The thing I see is, like, they're just working on dumb stuff. They're just spending a lot of effort on all the wrong things. So I'm sure you've been there at times. Like, how do you think about how to spend your time now?
Yeah. I wish I spent a lot more time focusing on how to get good or teach other staff members to be good at sales and marketing. Because the amount of time that we invest into training, it was fun. We loved it. Did it help us get referrals? Did it help us put together a better product? Yes. Could we have potentially grown much faster if I had a sales genius or a marketing guru on staff back in 2016, 17, 18? Yeah, I think so. So I think if there's something that's helpful for someone doing 20,000 a month right now, it's, not only is how good is your product 1 through 10, but how good is your sales process? How good is your marketing? Are you following up with people? Are you saying the right things? Are you guys learning from these experiences? Are you reviewing the tapes when people make the phone calls? And there's a lot of things that you could potentially do better that I think have been eye-opening for us in just the last 2 years or so.
So, James, if people want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, prattpersonaltraining.com is our website. On Instagram, we are Pratt Personal Training, and that's probably about it. I don't think my personal Instagram isn't anything special. I don't know if I've posted on that besides a few stories, but Pratt53 is that Instagram handle. But I appreciate you guys having me on. This is awesome. This is fun.
Oh, man. You're a killer.
Thanks, James.
Thanks for sharing.
Think the crowd is going to learn. And Gym World, be sure to subscribe, leave a hateful comment.
And never weaken.
See you next week. Never weaken.
And do your bicep curls.
Prove them wrong.